Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. All right, welcome to Transformative Principal. I am Jethro Jones, your host. I'm so excited to be here. Transformative Principal is a proud member of the B Podcast Network, and we have got some amazing shows. And today, I am excited to chat with Kristian Golick, who's the founder of EduCreative. They help schools stop sounding like everyone else. And if you've been listening to my show for any amount of time, you know this is right up my alley. Most schools talk about programs and preparation, but parents don't choose schools based on that. They choose based on connection. So at EduCreative, they uncover the emotional truth behind what makes your school different and turn that into a strategic, story-driven video that resonates with the right families. Because when your message is clear and your story connects, enrollment follows. Kristian, welcome to Transformative Principal. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So you and I met in a mastermind group for business owners, and you shared what you were doing, and I was like, oh my gosh, we need to connect. and you were saying this stuff, and everybody else in the group who's not education related was like, okay, interesting. And my eyes were huge, and I was like, we got to connect at some point, because you're speaking my language right up my alley, and I was so excited that we could finally connect and have this conversation, because it's so important.
Yeah. And likewise, when I was like, okay, there's another fellow education space member in this group, and we have a variety of different industries, a lot of construction and whatnot, which, not exactly the same ballpark. So yeah, when I met you, I was like, yes, this is my guy.
Yes, for sure. And it just goes to show the value of being in masterminds. I run masterminds, and any principals out there who are listening, you definitely got to join one. I'd love it if you join mine, but just go find a group, because that peer support, that network of support is so valuable. So we're going to dive into this topic today of how to make your school stand out. And the thing that I always say for people is, if you sound like just every other school, then it doesn't really matter what you do, because you're just like every other school. And so you really need to be clear about who you are and what matters, so that people can make a good decision about whether or not they want to be part of it. And this is not just for families wanting to send their kids there. It's also for recruiting the right teachers. So let's start with the family part, and we'll get into the teachers in a minute. But why is this so important, and how do you differentiate yourself? Because schools really are just the same. You educate kids. And so how do you make your message stand out?
Yeah, I mean, they are the same in that sense, but beyond that, schools are so different, truly. I mean, there are schools that really, every school has their own culture, right? And it's hard to kind of distill that. It's hard to articulate that, but every school does have its own culture, and culture is also just another word for reputation, right? So really it comes down to understanding that one key differentiator of your school that makes it unique, that defines its culture, right? And amplifying that versus, oh, well, we prep for college and we have an amazing music program. And our STEM lab is top tier. Everyone else, every other school is saying that, and they're not kind of leaning in on that one key differentiator that makes their school unique.
Yeah. So how do you find that one key differentiator? Hold on. Let me take that back. How do you, as the person who's creating this story-driven strategic video, how do you find that at a school that's like, hey, we got to do something? How do you do that with a school?
Yeah. And that comes down to the, initial conversation is I go in with the principal, with the communications director, with any staff involved in the project. And I just say, hey, tell me a time that you were so proud to work at your school. I just open up the conversation, because somewhere along the line, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have this one story that is incredible. That's not a, well, tell me about your science program. Tell me about your sports athletic program. Because then they go into bullet points. Then they go into kind of like, well, we want to emphasize this. No, no, no. Tell me a time that you were proud to work at your school. And then you pull out those bits of like, oh, that's interesting. Let's lean into that more. And that's the first step.
So let's just role play this a little bit, and we can do my previous school. Because the thing that I was most proud of was that I had 3 or 4 different times within a week or two that parents came up to me and said something along the lines of this: my kid has never talked about school before, but they have been talking about school nonstop. It's crazy. My kid has never talked about this. What are you guys doing? That's what the parents said to me. And when that happened, I was like, this is the jackpot. Yeah. We have won. I'm middle school students, not just saying, fine, nothing happened at school. They're actually like going home and talking to their parents. And so I asked, like, what do you mean? What are they saying? And they're like, well, they're talking about this project they're working on. They're talking about this and this teacher who's helping them. And I didn't even know that that they were doing this. And now they're trying to do this stuff at home, and I don't know how to help them. And I was like, okay, we are winning. That is winning the game of school in my mind. As a principal, we totally nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, if I heard that story, my first response would be, can I talk to that teacher who did that program? Because like I wanna kind of dissect that a little bit and just understand, like, what are they doing that's making such an impact on their students that make them want to talk about it to their parents after school. Because like there's something going on. There's a secret sauce there. I need to talk to that teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and in that case, it was actually our whole school that was doing it, because we were doing this program called Synergy. So every teacher was involved, just in a different way, in a different project with their students. So we had, I think, 50 or so projects that students were working on in groups of 2 to 10 kids, and they were spreading out all over the school, and everybody was involved. I had a group, every teacher had a group. We got our class sizes down to 13 kids per teacher, which was incredible, since our typical class size was 26, but because there was no prep periods at that time, and I was working with kids and so was everybody else, it became a really powerful time for kids to be able to do that. And I like where you said, I want to talk to that teacher who's doing that and creating that, because the principal has one perspective, but it's those little things that individuals are doing where they can give a different insight into it and really share what is great about the school. So when that happens, how do you suss out the things that are really important, and what kinds of things are like the alarm bells that are like, okay, this is something we really need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think in your case, instead of just talking to the one teacher, I would want to talk to a variety of teachers and see if I can hear the similarities. If there are common threads between all of their different stories of what they're doing in the programs, if there's similarities, ding, 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 I pull those. And then depending on what those similarities are, I can typically find, a couple emotions, one key idea, and kind of distill that. And then I take that idea and I think up of some, initial concepts around that idea. And then I pitch it back to the principal or, whoever's in charge of the project in terms of the creative and the marketing. I pitch that idea and say, hey, this is a common theme that I've found by talking with, a variety of teachers. This is a core emotion. Does this resonate? Like, do you feel that your school has this quality? Let's just call it, honor, right? Like you work with a lot of like private schools, all boys, private schools, like honor is a big theme, right? As an example, like, does this resonate? And depending on their reaction of like, oh my gosh, yes, or yeah, I mean, yeah, That's a kind of indicator for me of I hit the nail on the head, or let's keep digging.
Yeah. Well, and I like that idea of you talking about emotions and key ideas, because those emotions, I mean, what I understand you're really trying to do is make people have a visceral response to the video so that they want to be part of that school.
Mm-hmm.
And is that accurate?
Absolutely. That's brand building.
Yeah.
There's one key idea with a brand, or in this case, a school, right? Like kind of zooming out outside of the education space, Disney sells magic. Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola sells nostalgia. Volvo sells safety, right? So schools can be associated with a certain emotion or an idea, and that's what we want to convey as kind of the introduction to the school.
Yeah. So in my school, it sounds kind of like the emotion that we're going for. I don't know the right way to say this, so correct me where I'm going wrong. Is that your kids are going to love school, and they're going to talk about it. And like if that were the thing we were selling, then that would be pretty stinking awesome, I would think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a layer of digging we can do with that, of like kids love school. Okay, well, one, that's pretty not typical, right? Kids loving school. So I'd want to dig into that a little bit more of like what's happening that makes kids love school, because there might be another kind of key theme of, and just for an example, kids, they love school. That's the result. That's the outcome. But maybe it's that the kids actually feel like they have a seat at the table in the classroom, instead of just being talked at by the teacher, which, so many kids feel that way. Maybe they feel like they have a seat at the table, and it's actually, a two-way conversation rather than just teaching. Maybe they feel that way because kids, especially the middle school age, high school age, they want to feel like an adult. They want to, they're maturing. So if they feel like they have a voice, then they feel engaged. So maybe it's that. Because if they feel engaged and they feel they have a voice, then yeah, they're going to love school. Because it's like, oh, I have a place I can contribute to.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and that you did actually nail my school pretty well.
Oh, did I? Perfect.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that it's not that hard, actually. Yeah. Like it's difficult to do the creative work to make it look beautiful and communicate that all well, but it's not that hard to see what your school is doing great. And if your school is not doing something that it makes it stand out, then you got to figure that out. You gotta have a belief system that gets you to that point, because if your school is just like every other school, then it doesn't matter what school kids go to. And so why would anybody choose to come to your school? And with the way that the world is going right now, I've been talking about this for years, so it's a repeat to people who've been listening, but school is becoming more and more hyper local to a specific group. And so every school is in competition with another school. And that doesn't have to mean cutthroat or it's awful or terrible, but you have to be able to describe why your school is so much better for the people that you're trying to attract. And this works like a magnet to pull people to you, where they feel connected and they want to have their kids at your school. And then that unlocks all kinds of other things, because they're not complaining about it. They're now excited about it, telling their friends, saying, this is why my kid goes there, and your kid should go there too. And this is why it's so great. And then when you want to participate and do fundraising and all that kind of stuff, this all feeds into that. Talk about the follow-on effects of that piece when you're clear about who you are. What else happens?
Oh, when you find your fit, it's like magic, right? Because you're creating belonging. Your school is creating a sense of belonging in your students, so they feel that the school is a place of community, right? The school is like the arcade Granted, this is 2025 when we're recording, so arcades aren't really a thing. But this is the place where kids want to congregate instead of have to congregate 8 hours a day, right? Or however long school is. So instantly, it's a place where they want to be, and they are going to be much more engaged. That includes extracurriculars. That includes in the classroom. That includes bragging about it. Say they, have friends outside of the district or a different school that, don't go to their school. They're going to talk about it and sing the school's praises because it's their place. It's not just the school. It's also the student's place to be.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And when kids feel that, then they become committed to it. And
right.
The other thing that I've seen is that when kids love school, they take better care of the school also. They don't destroy or vandalize or things like that. And those things are so disruptive and so challenging for the school that it's just it's very difficult, to deal with that stuff. So it's really powerful when it works out well and people love the school.
Well, and I'll kind of tell my story a little bit here. So I went to a public school in Pennsylvania, and I was a very typical B student, right? My mom was very on me, like C's were rarely allowed, okay once in a while, but rarely, so I was a very solid B student. I kind of cared, but really it was like pulling teeth, getting to study for tests and all that. And it was my senior year of high school where I joined the only class TV production. And that was my first introduction into video, which is, my career and what I love. And that introduction was what made me just light up inside. And I was excited to work on projects. I was excited to go to that class. I was excited to do work outside of that class. It just brought so much fulfillment to me, and that was amazing. But the byproduct of that was my other classes that had nothing to do with video production, but were in that semester, I did well in because I cared.
Yeah.
And then, fast forward to college, I did a video program at a university, and I truly excelled all throughout college, because I was in it. I was happy. It lit me up. It wasn't a have to do. It was I'm excited to do this.
Yeah. Well, and that's what that's what my whole career as a principal was like. That once we found what the kid really engaged in and cared about, it brought up their scores in every other arena, and they were more committed, and they were engaged in the learning. They were participatory, and we had a student who was really struggling, and youngest of 4 or 5 kids, and his older siblings had been through, and they were like the perfect students, and he was trying to find his own way, and he was screwing around all the time, and we got him to a place where he was doing something he was interested in. Total night and day difference, because he saw what was possible, and he's like, oh, I'm not dumb, I was just bored, and there's a difference.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about, getting families to come, but how does this work with getting staff to come? What's your perspective on that?
Honestly, the exact same, because it's not about, if you want to talk marketing strategy, sure, there's some tweaks and shifts, of course, like deployment of content, where to put it where. Yes, you can, there's different channels and all that. But in terms of the message, no, because your school still is your school, whether you're a student or a potential new staff member. Your school still has that one thing that makes it different, and that is going to attract a potential teacher who shares those values versus all the other teachers who are like, I don't really care, I just need a job. Because we've seen that effect of teachers who just are kind of going through the motions. Oh, I just need a job. I'll take a, yep, sure, I'll do this job.
I just need my foot in the door. Yep.
Right. Which, like, I get it. You got to get your career started. But if you can truly attract the most ideal fit for teachers, that's going to just help snowball your entire school's brand and help increase learning for the students, help increase the engagement, because they get it. If you get a staff member who doesn't get it, now it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it really is. And so I've had many experiences with this, and one of the things that I tell principals all the time is you've got to be so clear and so dialed in on what your school is about that you can tell very quickly in an interview if somebody is the right fit, that you can tell before you get to the interview if they're a right fit or not, because that fit matters so much, because it's a exponential growth from there. That if you have 5 teachers who totally get it and are working together, like what they can do is so far beyond 5 teachers. They can do the work of 20 teachers. And that's not an exaggeration. And it's also not extra work for them because they understand what they're doing and how to do it in such a way that they can do it and make it seem like it's very simple. And that's the reality. And that's what I've seen time and time again. And so when you have someone come in and you're like, hey, this is what we're trying to do, it's also generous to those people who are interviewing that if this is not the right fit, then it's very clear. But if you don't know that yourself, and if you had a video that you create that tells the story, then they're like, okay, I belong here. This is where I need to be. Then people will want to come to that school, which totally changes the paradigm also, because instead of wondering if you're going to be able to hire enough teachers, you have to turn people away, and people will be like, hey, I'll teach anything in your school just so that I can get in there. Yeah. That can actually happen. And that's a really powerful position to be in as a school. And I don't think that there's any school out there that couldn't do this, because they could.
Easily. Right. Now, I actually, you made a comment about it's not that hard to kind of identify what makes the school different. And that is and isn't true. It is easy. Like you and I were talking about it, right? It's easy for us. It's not so easy for the principal. It's not so easy for the staff who they are in that school every day. They live in that school. So they see everything. And it's, when you're in it every day, it is hard to kind of step out, zoom out perspective wise and see the school from the eyes of a parent who just heard of your school, knows nothing about your school, or a potential teacher. Like it's very hard to step out into that perspective. So my advice to all schools is hire external counsel, like get external help that doesn't know your school as well as you do, because their perspective is going to be so valuable that you just physically can't have because you're in it every day.
Yeah. People say the phrase, you can't read the label from the inside of the bottle, because
exactly.
You're in there and you can't see what's good. But here's the other thing that is really beneficial is when you're clear about what you do and what your purpose is and your vision and all that, then having that piece of content that says this is what we're great at makes it easy for you to see that again and identify every place that it happens, and then it makes it easier for you to then perpetuate that and keep it going. And so this, it's a virtuous cycle that's so amazing, that having it and then talking about it and then sharing it and watching it again is powerful. And I would say once this is made, the team at the school should watch it on a regular basis themselves to remind themselves and to help them know what they're really there for. What do you think about that?
Oh, 1,000,000%. It's your mission statement. Mm-hmm. You need to be fully aligned on your mission statement. You need to live it. You need to talk about it. You need to breathe it, because that is what creates a cohesive message for the students currently in the school, for the parents who are thinking about enrolling their student in your school, for the staff who are looking at your school, potential staff. One unified message is going to bring clarity, and clarity brings confidence. Mm-hmm. The opposite, confusion and indecision and mismatch fits easily.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. So how does someone get started with working with you, with having you give them a consult and see what happens? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely reach out at educreative.com and schedule a consult with me. And, like I said, the first step is having that meeting. And I just want to absorb. I want to take it all in. What makes your school special to you? What makes you proud to work at your school? And then we take it from there. We distill down that key idea. We talk about marketing strategy. And, our conversation, Jethro, we've really talked high level on, distilling down a single idea. And that is extremely important. But there's more to the conversation. There's more to, what types of videos do we make? Where do we post them? How do we get them? Because there's a whole strategy involved. So that's kind of the next step that I walk schools through, evaluate their marketing channels, if they use email lists, social media, ads, all that. So there's a whole laundry list, but yeah. I walk schools through it step by step, and we figure out what makes most sense for them.
Yeah, I love it. And again, there's so much more that we can talk about. But I do want to share something with you that I created several years ago because I knew there was such a need for it, and it failed. And I want to share this because I think there's lessons in these types of experiences. So I created a website called creativesforeducation.com, and I'm pretty sure that I don't have the URL anymore, so that site is probably gone. But I'll double check. And I also had creatives, the number 4 edu, but I'm pretty sure those are gone now. Anyway, what I created was this way for schools to say, well, let me back up a little bit. Schools are good at teaching kids, but they suck at making beautiful things. And so that was my main problem as a teacher. I would do these worksheets or directions or whatever, and they just looked like trash. I mean, standard Word document, you type it up and put it out there, and it was just ugly. I mean, that's all there was to it.
Not an engaging experience.
Yes, not at all. And so I created this website, Creatives for Education, so that people could get creatives to volunteer their time to redo a piece of paper or a poster or something, so that it was more aesthetically pleasing to the people who are looking at it. And a lot of educators have tried to do this video stuff, have tried to make a video about their school, and even I have, and I'm just not very good at it. And you can tell when it's someone who is really great at doing it and can tell a good story and make it look beautiful and all that kind of stuff, and someone who's just doing, trying to do it myself in iMovie, right? There's just a difference. And so I created this thing, and it was such a good idea and so valuable, but I just couldn't figure out how to make it work and make it happen, And so what's so cool about us meeting is that I was like, I need someone to take these videos that we make and then make them better. And this was me thinking 15 years ago. I think that's when I did it, was in 2010. And here you are, this is your thing. And I just think schools really need this kind of stuff, because we do amazing things and we're in the thick of it with kids every single day, and we don't have the time and energy and expertise to make what you do actually happen. And so all those things about how the next steps that you had just talked about, how you go, what ways they communicate, what social media channels they use, whether they use email lists, stuff like that. So many schools are not even thinking about that and not even touching it. So I feel like we need to come back and have a second discussion later and talk about some of those things more in depth. And and see what that looks like. And does that sound good to you? Because
Oh, I am in. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And right. And here's the way I always approach it is a video, a piece of creative, anything that is seen in the outside world. I mean, even inside, talking about worksheets and all that. Any piece of creative is a representation of your school's experience. So if your school truly does have a wonderful experience, like you're extremely proud of the school that you've built, but the creative is just an iPad video, right? There's a disconnect there, and it doesn't really do your school justice. And so that's where I come in, and I properly represent your school. I properly show through the creative, through my skill set, of course, what makes your school special.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So good. All right, we're gonna have another chat. If you want to get in touch with Kristian, educreative.com, educreative.com. And so my last question for you, Kristian, is we've talked about a lot of stuff, and a principal could walk away from this conversation feeling a bit overwhelmed, let's say. So what is the one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative principal?
I would say, to the best of their capacity, reach out to their staff and just ask, hey, what's an amazing moment that you saw this week? Just ask, open-end it, because is that going to give them the answer of what makes our school different? No, it's not the full answer, but it's a start, right?
Yeah.
I'd say that's the first start.
Yeah, good. That's your action step, folks. Talk to your teachers. What's an amazing thing that happened this week, and start collecting those stories and start seeing what is resonating, what's happening more and more. I think that's brilliant advice. Very good. Kristian, this was awesome. Thank you so much. I look forward to chatting with you more and continuing to help schools with all the things that you're doing. So thank you.